But before we do that, I'd like to call on a friend, a sister, and a colleague. I'll not be doing this alone. I'm here with one of Bayasa's finest MCs we have. Please put your hands together for Sarah Carl. Sarah Carl, over to you.
Thank you very much, my brother. A very, very beautiful afternoon to you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. First of all, I want to appreciate you, sir, for putting this event together, and I want to stand on the existing protocol. Thank you very much for being here, everybody. Like I said, my name is Sarah Kyle, and I work with Silver Brush Rhythm 94.7, but aside that, I talk for a living. Okay, yes, he has said so many things, and I've listened to so many speakers express themselves, and I'm super excited because I am a very, in fact, let me say this calmly, a very, very proud Nembe woman. Please put your hands together for me. While one of the speakers who was, delivering his lecture, he made mention of the fact that you have to do what you want as a student. I remember years ago, I had to converse with my mother. I had to convince her to allow me to study theatre arts instead of law, so we should know how difficult it was. But today, I stand here very, very happy I made that decision because, like I said, I talk for a living and I have been able to go places, and I believe God, we are still going places. So please, wherever you find yourself, keep flying the Nembe flag very, very high. I can see that Chief here is really, really doing a great job. Thank you very much. Please, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for yourself. Very quickly, I want to introduce someone very, very awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, she is the Chief Superintendent on Narcotics, I beg your pardon. Please, ladies and gentlemen, I need you to put your hands together for Mrs. I beg your pardon, Nana Lemi. Please put your hands together for Nana Lemi. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, sir, Chief Peters, the elders, members of the high table, our wonderful students, corpus, everybody present here, good afternoon. I am Nana Lele of the NDLEA, and I'm here to deliver a lecture which is titled Drug Abuse and School Dropout. Drug abuse and school dropout. You know, when we talk about drugs today, it is a very common thing in our country today. In our society, our communities, our environment, you find drugs everywhere. Wow. Now, some people just take these drugs because they want to experiment it. Some people don't even really want to do drugs in the first place. But you find that most of our youth, because of probably their friends, when they see their friends do this thing, they will say, let me just try it too and see how it is. And some, from that trial, if they don't enjoy it, they discontinue. For others who enjoy the taste of the drug, who get this maybe euphoria from that drug, they end up continuing beyond that first experimental stage. Now, briefly, what is a drug? A drug is any substance which, when taken into the body, changes the way your brain and your mind works. No matter the drug, any drug at all that you take must definitely change your mind and your brain at that time that you are taking it. Now, When we take these drugs, some of us just take it without knowing the implications of taking these drugs. But most of these drugs are so unpredictable and so dangerous. Some of these drugs are so unpredictable and so dangerous. The effect of drug for everybody is different. If somebody takes, for example, a particular drug now, the way it will work on that person will quite be different from the way it will work on another person. So the effect is different depending on our body build, our weight, and all of that. You know, these drugs that we take is not like a one-size-fits-all. No. And there are people take drugs for different reasons. If I begin to go around to ask people, do you take Panadol? Do you take paracetamol? Why do you take it? People will definitely give you different reasons why they take these drugs. Now, what is drug abuse? Having knowing what a drug is, we want to see what it means to abuse a drug. Now, drug abuse is when you take this drug out of prescription. If it is not medically necessary, it has become an abuse. I'm using the language necessary because some people are already on a particular drug and they feel if they don't take it that day, they won't be able to function for that day. It becomes an abuse when it is not medically necessary. Drugs are said to be abused when they are legally prohibited. In our country, there is a law that guides the use of drugs. Now, there are certain drugs that are prohibited by this great nation, Nigeria. And if you take these drugs that are prohibited by our country, it's already an abuse. Because your country, the country has said, do not take these drugs. And when you go ahead to take these drugs, you have abused these drugs. Example of the drugs that fall under this category are cocaine, marijuana, heroin, amphetamine, and other substances that are considered harmful on the human body. What is drug abuse? Drug is said to be abused when it is used excessively. When you use it more than required. And when you come and take 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 2 in the evening, the following day you tell yourself, nah, this thing is not working for me. Let me just increase it to 4 tablets and see, just to speed up the healing. It is an abuse. Now we want to look at some types of drugs. Drugs are classified into 3 major groups. We have the prescription drugs that are also called the illicit drugs. These prescription drugs are drugs that when you go to the hospital, when you see a physician, the physician writes out for you on a paper the drugs that you need to buy. That's the prescription that has been given to you by your doctor. And with that prescription, if you go to any chemist, any pharmacy, you will be able to buy those drugs because they have been prescribed to you by a physician. Some of these drugs are analgesic, Puritan, antibiotics, cough medicines. Most of these drugs they fall under the group of prescription drugs. The second group we want to look at today is narcotics or illicit drugs. Narcotics or illicit drugs. These illicit drugs are substances that the cultivation of it, the manufacture of it, the sale of it, the distribution of it, the purchase of it for sale, or even possession, having it is prohibited by the law on the account that it is harmful and dangerous to the human body. Examples of illicit drugs are cannabis, sativa, we have the cocaine, heroin, we have amphetamine, etc. The third group of types of drugs are the socially accepted drugs. There are drugs that are classified as socially accepted by our society and community. And these socially accepted drugs also can cause a habit, a habit. You can form a habit from it, from these socially accepted drugs. And these examples of these drugs are alcohol. Talking about alcohol, when you come down to our communities and our societies, they are very, very common. But they are accepted. The government allows the sales of alcohol. In as much as they are socially accepted and the government has given license to sell or to consume, they are equally dangerous. Because like in most of our communities, you know, some of us grew up with this, our normal dream. And when we wake up in the morning, we start with it. At least you say, some people call it one for the road. Some people say they use it at least to Google their mouth in the morning before going out. But most of these drugs, before you know, from some of these drugs like alcohol, our normal kai that we take here and all that can lead someone who is not strong into taking other drugs. That's why we call them gateway drugs. Some people start from alcohol, and before you know it, they feel the effect of alcohol is not enough. Let me take marijuana, that is the Igbo. Let me take Igbo, add to it, so that it will give me some more effect. We have our drink here that we call monkey tail. That monkey tail, for example, now is kai together with marijuana. And so now you can see. Praise the Lord. Now we want to look at stages of drug abuse. Drug abuse is in stages. Is in stages. And the number one stage we have here is experimentation. In the case of experimentation, just like I said earlier, it's just somebody, maybe a youth, seeing his friend, peers, age groups, taking a particular drug, and they say, let me try it too. Let me try and see how it is. And maybe when they take this drug and they like it, you know, they might continue use from there, you know. If it is not palatable, they discontinue use. But if it is palatable to the user, you find out that the user now graduates from an experimental user to an occasional user. Now this brings us to the second point under stages of drug abuse. There are drug users that we call occasional users. These are users that take drug only when it is available. When they see it, they are ready to take it. But they don't spend their money to buy those drugs. They don't spend it. They only take from maybe their peers, their friends, and use. Now, people in this category always feel they can handle the situation at any time. But at times, that is not always the case. They feel they can always stop. After all, I'm an occasional user. I only take it at parties. I only take it at burials. I only take it at occasions. That's why we say occasional users. But at times, they find themselves going beyond that occasional use to regular users. Now, a regular user of drug is someone that actively seeks for that drug by himself. He seeks for that drug. He maintains his supplies. He knows where to get his drugs from. He's already a regular user. He cannot do without taking these drugs. and then he spends his own money, his time, because he wants to feel hard at every point in time. At a time that he finds out maybe the effect of the drug is wearing off, he will look for more and continue taking. These are regular users. And these regular users tend to develop this tolerance for the drug, as in they cannot do without it at all. And developing this a tolerance for a particular drug leads you into addiction. You become an addicted user of this drug. Now, number 4, dependence and addiction user. At this stage, the drug has become a major part of the user. The drug has become a major part of the user. That the user is so obsessed with the drugs and makes effort to obtain these drugs at all costs. When I mean all costs, at this point, the user is ready to sell property, is ready to sell anything just to see that he continues the use of these drugs. At this point, the user does not have regard for family, does not have regard for friends. He's already deep into drugs. That is an addicted user. Our number 5 stage here is withdrawal and death. Drugs are so dangerous that we cannot talk about drugs without talking about death. It is normal for a drug user to want to stop using drugs. All drug users that are so addicted to drugs, when you talk to them, they will tell you, I want to stop this thing, but I don't know how to do it. They will always tell you, I want to stop using drugs. But the way to stop using, that's the way that they don't know how to go about. Sometimes they will tell you, I will try again. I've tried before. Let me try again. At this point, they look so pitiful. They look so pitiful. You really have, you already feel pity for them when you see them. Now, some of them, they really try and stop using these drugs. But there are certain discomforts that come, that are associated with the stop of these drugs. They could begin to feel headaches. They could have insomnia. They could have this dehydration, tremor, irritability. And it is at this point that fear grabs an addicted user. He really wants to get out of these drugs, but doesn't know how to get out of it. At this point, if the individual realizes there's a problem and is motivated to change, and if appropriate help is available, the individual may overcome his dependence problem. Otherwise, such an individual gets addicted for life until death. That's how dangerous drugs are. They get addicted for life until death. Now, our topic for today says drug abuse and school dropout. We want to see the relationship between drug abuse and dropout and school dropout. Now, let's look at how substance use can make a student to drop out of school. How substance use can make a student to drop out of school. You know, when you look at high school can be difficult for a number of reasons. It can be academically challenging, highly stressful, as college preparations can be full of ups and downs. It often includes a lot of social pressures to act or to do as the in-crowd does. You know, going to school has its own challenges. That's what I want us to understand. Most most children find themselves in school, and before you know it, some of them begin to feel, when you see a particular group of students, you feel, I'm supposed to be like this particular group of students. I'm supposed to belong to this group. I don't belong to this group. And some students begin to have this, some students begin to feel inferior. And because of that inferiority complex that has set in, they force themselves to join groups, to join peers, to join friends that they really might not even want to join. All in all, there's a lot on high school students' shoulders during this period. Unfortunately, this can lead to dropouts. Because when you go and join friends that are not your class of friends, when you go and make friends that you are not supposed to be with, if you are not careful, you might find yourself dropping out of school. While those people that you went to join are still in school and might be able to manage and go through with school. Some students leave school without finishing for a number of reasons. Many of these are some of the reasons that students experiment with drugs. Some students feel like they don't belong and must belong. Based on that, before you know, they are out of school. This feeling of immense stress. Some students feel school is stressful. I can't go through with school. Why should I be going through all the stress of waking up early, coming back late in the evening? And because of that, you find some students dropping out of school. Some children feel depressed. They go to school and for reasons best known to them, before you know, depression has set in. And when depression comes in, like the first lecturer said, before you know it, they are out of the classroom, doing one thing or the other. They are out of the classroom and before you know, they begin to indulge in what? In drug abuse. And before you know, they are in occult groups. And before you know it, depression has now set in. When depression sets in, they drop out of school. Each of these earlier mentioned can push a student over the edge. Research has shown that there is a link between teen substance abuse and how well they do in school. There's a link between substance abuse and how well a student does in school. We have gone out for enlightenment in schools. And in some of the secondary schools we have been to in town and some of the local government areas, we have had calls to take drugs from students. As the teacher is teaching in the class, some of them are sipping some other things they mix. They call it red wine. When we ask them what is this, they say it's red wine. And they were drinking it at the back of the classroom. So you can see that substance abuse is quite linked with why students drop out from school. Now, students who use substance normally have low grades. You can never compare yourself with someone that is clean, that does not use drugs, that does not use substances. Students who use substances always have low grades. And when you come home and your dad is asking you or your mom, why do you have low grades? You will now say the teacher is not teaching well. The mathematics teacher doesn't know how to teach. The chemistry teacher doesn't know how to teach. But in most cases, it is because they have indulged in other activities like drugs that is giving them low grades. Now, students who use substances always have higher rates of absence from school. Look for them in school, you won't find them. You can count the number of days that these students go to school. And then now when you don't go to school every day as a child, how do you pick up with your studies? When you see someone that is taking first in your class, does that person have two heads? No. When you see someone that is coming out of first class, does that person have two heads? No. It's just a matter of putting ourselves together and doing what is right. Okay. Some of these students who use substances have low concentration in school. They don't give priority to assignments. When assignments are given, they don't do such assignments. Therefore, because of drugs, the effect of drugs, they don't have the ability to memorize what they are taught. Their general IQ is very, very low. Although we all know or hear stories about people who use substances and still get great grades, this is not typical. Most people who use substances regularly don't consistently do well in school. Studies have shown that marijuana, for example, affects attention, memory, and the ability to learn. Its effect can last for days or weeks after the drugs wears off. Students who use marijuana or other drugs tend to get lower grades and more likely to drop out of school. Heavy use of marijuana in teen years and continued into adulthood can reduce your IQ. High school dropout rates have risen as a result of substance use. Teens of ages 18, 17, and 16 years who dropped out of school before graduation are more likely than their peers to be users of cigarettes and alcohol, marijuana, and so on. What causes dropouts in school? There's a particular percentage of people who agree that most students drop out of school because of monetary reasons. Another group says that students drop out of school because of poor performance. There's this other group that says education is useless, so why go to school? Some, just a few percentage, have completed education to the level that they want. Generally, 31.4% of dropouts use illicit drugs, compared with 18% of older teens enrolled in school. Now, the report found that 27.3% of dropouts use marijuana, compared to their counterparts who are in school. Among dropouts, 41.6% use alcohol, compared to their counterparts that are in school. The link between substance abuse and poor academic performance is strong, and there is a tie between the two. There is therefore need to keep teens in school to prevent problems with substance abuse. Dropouts are at an increased risk of substance use, which is particularly troubling, seeing that they are at greater risk of poverty, not having health insurance, and other health problems. We have to do everything we can as a people, as individuals, as a community, as a society, we have to do everything we can to keep them in school so that they can live healthy and productive lives. Research has it that 1 out of 7 secondary students drop out before they make it to graduation day. This is an alarming statistic in this day and age where university degree can barely guarantee a future that can support a family. Indeed, dropouts will be likely to have a job that will provide the ability for a health insurance. Now, the last topic we are looking at is school dropout consequences and prevention. Keeping our youth in school needs to be a topmost priority. This is a call to all parents, to all adults in our community, morals from the homes, from the community, from the environment they come out from. Without asking questions, there is a price to be paid by the whole society. Every family, every student that drops out of school hurts the entire family. Every student that drops out of school hurts the entire community. The damage that is being done needs to be addressed. The fact that 1 out of 7 students drop out of school has a big public health implication on our nation. We need to do everything we can towards school dropout prevention so they can have the best of life and so they can live a healthy life. Thank you very much.
Let's clap for our mommy. Mommy, thank you very much. Sorry we cut you short, but with the little you've said, we've gained a lot. Student, isn't it? No students here again. At least the one when mommy talk, when I understand and when I don't grab something inside her. True or false? Please, let's clap for our mommy.